All right, episode 37, TJ Martino podcast. We're here in Columbus, Ohio with my former boss, mentor, and hero.
Oh, hero.
Gary, the arena guy, is here, people.
All right.
He's in the building. And we are going to be doing a really fun episode today. We're doing the top 10 movies of 2020. I know, right? In April of 2021, we're talking about 2020 movies. It's been a strange year, and it's been a weird year for movies. I said this in 2019 that was such a hard list to make, and I think about it because there were so many good movies that year. This was a hard list to make because there was no movies this year, so it was really slim pickings. Some of these movies that are on my list, and I'm not sure about yours as well, but they'll probably they wouldn't be on the list in another year. But it is what it is. But there was some hidden good films out there. Don't you agree?
I totally agree. And it was a strange year, and it is kind of strange in April to look back at 2020 because I had to rack my brain as to what I actually saw because most theaters were closed for most of the year. And you know how much I love watching movies at home on streaming services.
Yeah.
Which I don't. I feel like those are made for TV movies. So I like going to the theater and having the theatrical experience with popcorn and the giant screen and the Dolby sound and all that kind of stuff. So we didn't have that much opportunity. And a lot of studios also held their movies until things kind of resumed a little bit.
Yeah.
Until the world
They were hedging.
opened up. You're right. They were. I mean, how many times has James Bond been kind of have a new release?
They had to go back for James Bond and redo some of the CGI because it became outdated over the time that it was just sitting in the studio doing nothing.
Isn't that weird? So it was a very strange year, and like you said, my top 10 list includes several movies that would not normally be on a best of list, and also you made it challenging because you said 2020 as opposed to the Academy Awards season.
Right, because I usually like to time this up with the Oscars.
Right.
But the Oscars are in April now. So.
Well, they're in April, and it's what's really weird about the Academy Awards, and it's one thing that I don't like about the Academy Awards is that a lot of times studios will strategically release movies like a month or two before the voting deadline. So those movies are front and center and fresh in the minds of the voters as opposed to movies that were released earlier in the year. Tend to be forgotten. And a case in point is one we talk about a lot is Rocketman last year,
your favorite.
Which was, in my mind, a brilliant movie that deserved a nomination. But it was really so early in the season that other movies came along, and a lot of the nominated movies are closer to the voting deadline time, so it didn't happen. So it's the whole thing's kind of strange, especially this year, but there were some really good ones, though. Yeah,
there were. I was really surprised, actually, like how many good intimate movies there were this year as compared to previous years where you got the big blockbusters and taking up most of the space. This was kind of a year for independent movies in a way because
it totally.
A lot of these movies were shot in 2019 and just were kind of sitting there, waiting to be released, and then here they are, and some of them are pretty good.
Yeah.
It's definitely a weak year, and I think, obviously there are so many other reasons for that, but that's neither here nor there. But the point is that
it's mostly
it's a weak year, but there's still some great films. So how we're going to do this is Gary and I have both made our own top 10 lists on our own. We have not shared any of our picks.
Right.
So we are going to just break down each movie from 10 down to 1. And if we both have a movie on our list, but his is higher, for example, let's just say, for example, Star Wars. He says Star Wars is his, I say Star Wars is my number 10 movie, but it's his number 5. He would say, okay, hold on, we'll talk about it later. It's higher on my list. Just say it's higher on my list or something like that. So just let me know. And we'll just do that. We'll just trade one apiece and go.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay, let's do this.
This is fun because these conversations, the kind of conversation we're having today, are conversations that we had in the office or just talking personally.
Yeah.
So this is fun to put in a podcast.
Yes, and we'll give a little background to that. I was Gary's intern for a year. It was an awesome experience, and if you're in Columbus, a student, and are looking for an awesome internship with some great experience in the entertainment world, This is your guy right here. The arena guy. He is the arena guy. Can you just break down the arena guy before we get into the lists?
Well, I'm kind of like two people, kind of like Jekyll and Hyde, because half of me is the communications director at the Shot and Nationwide Arena. And I always kind of say that's the suit and tie guy. That's where I'm being myself. I'm answering questions from the media or pitching stories to the media and talking about kind of arena or industry related issues. The arena guy is kind of, I would say, a brand that was started to kind of share behind the scenes of what we do and make TV and radio appearances and kind of brand the arena guy with the motto that I call fun and informative. So we get the message out. I let the marketing team do the hard sell. I feel like I do the soft sell and try to create FOMO. Everybody knows what that is, right? Fear of missing out. So we create content at events, talking to fans, talking to sometimes performers, sharing stories, creative content of what these events are all about to make it, one, seem fun. You can't miss it. You should be there. And two, if you did miss it, bad for you, come to the next one. So that's what we're kind of doing, kind of share behind the scenes fun with what we do.
Right, and he's kind of like the liaison between, you know, the acts themselves and the shows and the people. You know, he's the middleman, and he gives the information to the people, and does it in a way that's entertaining and interesting and funny at times.
And sometimes embarrassing, but that's where the funny part comes in.
Right, exactly. Funny at your expense.
Yeah.
Let's get into these movies. I just wanted to do a little, you know, just so people know who you are. Do a little bit, you know, a little bit of an intro. Now we're getting into the list.
Okay.
You're the guest. What's your number 10?
Number 10 was a movie, you know, you talked about there weren't many blockbusters, but budget-wise, this movie was a blockbuster. It had a $100 million budget, and it made a whopping $62,000 so far.
Wow.
And I'm sure COVID had a lot to do with it because movie theaters were just not open.
Yeah.
And it never really caught on with those who did see it. And it's a movie that was, I'm sure the studios and the director and the actor, who's the same person, felt it would do a lot better. But it's also a genre in the COVID, listen to me build this up. During the year of COVID, there were a lot of kind of horror and science fiction movies out there, maybe because they were never intended to be blockbusters, but this one was. It was called The Midnight Sky.
Okay. I haven't seen it.
Written by produced by and directed by George Clooney and starring George Clooney with the very, you know, all the women drool over him about, you know, he's like the most good-looking actor in America and all that kind of stuff. He was not afraid to go against that type in this movie. He had this very long beard. He looked way older than he really is. And I will be honest with you, it made number 10 on my list because I could not get through it. It just never captured my attention. Now, to put it into perspective, I watched it at home about 10 o'clock at night. Now that's not terribly late, and it's not for you because I know you are a night owl.
Not as much anymore.
Well, I used to be more.
Yeah, I used to be, yeah.
But now, you know, it gets to be about 11 o'clock, and I'm not really ready to call it a night, but I'm kind of like winding down. And maybe that was the reason. And I watched it at home, kind of laying on my couch. If I was in the theater, I'm not one to leave movies before they're over, even if they're bad, because I feel like I paid the money for it.
Yeah, it takes a lot to get me to walk out.
I've only done it once in my life, and so I probably would have stayed and watched the whole thing, and maybe it's something that builds, but it was an attempt to be in the sci-fi genre. George Clooney, big name attached to it, big Hollywood movie.
It just didn't work for you.
It didn't work for me, number 10 on my list.
Okay. My number 10 is... let me pull up the list here. This is my show and I'm not even prepared. All right, here we go. My number 10 is a film that came out in early 2020. It was kind of one of the only sports movies that came out in 2020.
Tell me.
It came out early, and I saw it, I think in March or April, like right at the beginning of quarantine, and I checked it out, and it is The Way Back with Ben Affleck. Have you seen this film?
I did not. You know what? I actually, a couple days ago, when I was trying to come up with what movies actually did come out in 2020.
Yeah, this was a hard year.
Because it was a hard year.
Very hard year.
Normally, it's like what you said earlier. It's like there's way too many.
Right. It's hard because I don't know which one I like more.
Exactly.
This one's like, I guess I'll throw this one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I noticed that movie, and I did not watch it. And maybe I should have. I don't know if it's on Netflix or not, but the only streaming service I have is Netflix.
Okay.
So my options, Amazon Prime and all that, don't have that.
Okay. But so this movie was good. Basically, Ben Affleck plays an alcoholic, drunk high school basketball coach, and I mean, he's like working in like some like metal mill at the beginning of the movie, and then he gets recruited to be the basketball coach at this high school that he used to play at. He was like the best player at. Which, I mean, Ben Affleck doesn't really strike me as a basketball player, build, but, whatever, it's a movie. Yeah, I thought the movie was good. It is a little conventional. I mean, it dives into, like, his alcoholism and how it, it affects the team. And, the movie was fine. Like I said, it wouldn't have made my list any other year, but, Ben Affleck's good in the film, and it was entertaining, and, some of the side characters had some, funny quirks to them. So, I mean, it was an interesting movie at best. But, yeah, kind of blah, if I'm being honest.
Sounds like it, I haven't seen it, but it sounds like maybe it was a little predictable.
Yeah.
Because personal struggles with trying to be rah-rah for the team and maybe turning the team around. I don't know if that's what happened, but that's what typically happens in these types of movies.
It's just, the one thing I thought was funny is, like, how much cursing there is in the movie. Like, for a high school, like, battle, he's like, run down the effing court. Like, you see that throughout the whole movie, and it's like, it adds a little bit of character to it. I don't know. I thought the movie was fun.
Okay.
What's your 9?
My 9 is, it's a movie that a lot of people liked. A lot of people liked the first one better. A lot of people had questions as to why did so-and-so come back, or why did this happen?
Okay, yeah.
In the second one, but it was exactly what I expected it to be. It's what you call a popcorn movie, and Wonder Woman 1984.
Didn't make my list, but it's an honorable mention.
It only made my list because I believe I only saw 11 movies in 2020
Okay.
that fall within the calendar year of 2020. I've seen a whole bunch since January, but that doesn't qualify. So it was fine. Kristen Wiig was kind of from Saturday Night Live, added some comedy relief. The boyfriend coming back seemed a little...
It didn't make any sense.
It didn't make any sense at all.
It's like, and they make it like this romantic thing, but it's like he's stealing somebody's body.
Yeah.
Somebody's life is being compromised for them to make up their relationship. Like, are you kidding me? For something that nobody really wants to see, they killed him off in the first movie, which was ballsy and made sense, and then they just totally went back on it.
Yeah.
And now it makes the first movie a little bit less powerful.
Yeah. And so and a lot of people shared that opinion. So I thought it was fine. It was a popcorn movie. You wanted some action. It definitely had that. Kristen Wiig went sour, and then she found the error of her ways and came back. But
yeah,
that seemed a little kind of weird too. But it's exactly a superhero type movie, and kind of expected.
The character, the businessman, Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell is?
I totally agree. I rolled my eyes. The whole movie, I rolled my eyes at his character.
It's
like
just
stupid.
Yeah, the cringy Donald Trump, caricature.
Yeah.
It's like, ugh. We've seen that a million times in Hollywood in the past 5 years.
And in real life.
Yeah. But, the CG in that movie looked like crap at the end. That final battle sequence for me, the CGI, the effects looked horrible.
Yeah.
I was like, this looks terrible. Like, the design for the cheetah, what the hell were they thinking?
Yeah. It's the kind of movie that should have gotten an Oscar nomination for visual effects and that sort of thing, because that's what the movie's all about.
Yeah, and they couldn't even get that right.
No, they couldn't get that right, so.
And that's the thing, I like the director, Patty Jenkins. She's very talented, and she did a good job with the first movie, but this movie's just all over the place. It wants to be too many things.
Yeah. I think they tried to do too much with it, yeah. So, that was my number 9.
Okay.
It was number 10 as I was watching The Midnight Sky last night. And then The Midnight Sky just took the dive.
Yeah. Yeah, that one was strange.
Yeah.
My number 9 is a film called The King of Staten Island.
Oh my God! So this is so funny. I don't mean to interrupt you, but The King of Staten Island. I met Pete Davidson before.
Really? Where?
He was actually did an OUAB stand-up.
Oh, really?
Like a couple years ago, and met him there. And he was there with Davey Bryant from Saturday Night Live as well.
Okay.
And I so wanted to see this movie because the trailer when we talk about my love-hate with relationship with trailers, because
Yeah.
sometimes I don't want to know what a movie's going to be about, but
Yeah,
sometimes you
definitely.
need that to attract
Yeah,
you to the theater. And that trailer looked like it was against type for Pete Davidson. And I wanted to see it so badly, but it's not on Netflix.
I will say it's not against type.
Oh, it's not?
No, but that doesn't mean it's bad. I think it's a good movie. I mean, it's on top 10, and I'll tell you what, it's probably one of my favorite comedies of the year, and it had a lot of heart to it. You know, it had a lot more heart to it than I thought it would. I thought it was just going to be goofy. You know, Pete Davidson doing his stoner meandering.
That's what I
bit.
mean about going against type is a little different.
Right, and he does do that in this movie, but it has a level of personality to it that you can kind of you can get on board with it, and there's some funny dialogue, some funny back and forth with some of the characters, and I like Bill Burr in the movie too. He's really good as like the kind of like stepdad kind of thing, That was a really good combination. Yeah, I thought the movie was surprisingly pretty good. And Pete Davidson was good in the movie, and I'm not a huge Pete Davidson fan, but he's good in this movie, and it's fun. It was a really good comedy with a lot of heart to it.
He's in another movie called Palm Springs, and I wasn't able to see that either because it's The King of Staten Island is an example of a movie that just didn't get play in theaters, but only in streaming services.
Right.
And there's 5 or 6 major ones now at least. And if you don't have the right one, you miss it. Just like News of the World with Tom Hanks. I mean, if you don't have HBO Max,
I didn't see that. Yeah,
I wanted to see it so bad, but it was in the theaters for like 2 weeks, and then so I'm kind of jealous that you saw that movie. Actually.
Yeah, it was good. I thought it was a surprise because it was just a movie that my friends and I were just gonna throw on one night, just a random night, and we looked at each other after the movie. We're like, man, that wasn't that bad. I liked that. I liked that a lot.
Yeah.
It had a heart to it, which I wasn't expecting. All right, what's your 8?
My number 8 is 8 for one reason only. I thought it was phenomenal, but because it was nothing more than a videotaping or recording of what happened on stage, it was kind of weak from a movie standpoint, I felt, and that is Hamilton.
Okay, I didn't see it.
It's on Disney Plus, and that's the only place you could see the movie.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
And they sold it as a movie, but really it was nothing more than a recording with the original cast, which meant Lin-Manuel Miranda, a recording of the actual stage production. So it was basically a Broadway show on film, or I still say film, but it was mesmerizing. It was amazing. I've never seen the Broadway production or a touring production, so to see it was really special. And I watched it with the caption on, the closed captioning, so I could understand the lyrics because everything's sung. So that helped. It was phenomenal, but as a movie, I made it number 8 because it just was a recording.
Yeah, it's not. If it was a movie, where would you if it was like a real production? I mean, that's hard to say.
No, I'd say if they made a movie version that was as good as this production, it would have been in my top 3.
Okay.
It really was.
Yeah,
it was that
I'll
good.
check it out. I've heard buzz about it. I've heard good things and I've heard bad things about it. So those are the kind of movies I like. So I'll check it out.
Broadway musical released to theaters or released to Disney Plus. So it deserved better, but that's all. That's the reason why it's number 8.
Okay. My number 8 is the only documentary on this list. I don't usually
almost put one on.
I don't usually like to do documentaries, but yeah, this one's so damn good. It's called The Phenomenon. Have you heard of this movie?
No.
So this movie basically chronicles all of the UFO sightings in America since the 50s. Not all of them, but a lot of the big major ones from the 40s all the way to modern day. And this movie kind of chronicles it. It shows you reenactments of it. It interviews the people that have seen UFOs, and obviously now is the time for UFOs. I mean, the Pentagon just released more information on UFOs today, this is really becoming a thing, and I think this movie is kind of helped spearhead that movement. It came out in October of last year, 2020, and I heard a lot of buzz about it, and I love UFO, alien, conspiracy theories, all that, so I was so in on this, and I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of former military people, senators, Congress people on both sides, giving their opinions on UFOs, and it's interesting to see, especially guys like Harry Reid, who was like the Senate Majority Leader for 8 years, and when he kind of talked, they have an interview with him in the movie, and he kind of like hints at the fact that they haven't really released any of the information that they have on UFOs, and they know so much more. It's kind of what he led on. He didn't say that, but he kind of, he kind of gave the wink of like, we know exactly what this is, and you don't, kind of thing. But I think they're going to try and start eking this kind of information out slowly, because it's heavy. I mean, we're not the only people in the universe anymore, potentially. So I think that's something that they got to do with care before people rip their own heads off the information. So. Yeah, but I love the documentary. The interviews are great, and it's really well put together. So that's my number 8. What's your 7?
Number 7, I watched a couple weeks ago because I'm trying to watch all the Academy Award nominated movies and major performances. And I'm drawing a blank now on the actress who was nominated for Best Oscar. I can look it up here in a second. But it's a movie called Pieces of a Woman.
I didn't see this.
I
saw Promising Young Woman. That was the one I saw.
I know, and that's the one I thought.
Did not like it.
I thought I was going to see that one because it's up for Best Picture.
Yeah, I don't agree with it at all.
And it's not on Netflix, so and I will be seeing some of those movies.
I thought Carey Mulligan was really good in that movie, but the story is just ridiculous. And that final act made with the text and all. No, good movie. What were you saying? Pieces of a Woman.
Pieces of a Woman. Perhaps it should trade spots with. I don't know. It's hesitated trading spots with Hamilton for the reasons I just explained. So it fell at number 7. Performance is great. Shia LaBeouf is the husband of. I won't give much away, but the husband of a child that he had with his wife, and they had some issues, and the relationship between husband and wife was strained after those issues. Performances were good. It just was a very, and it could be called a powerful movie. I mean, it really was about the struggles that she went through with, I think it's probably not a spoiler, but just dealing with loss in many areas.
Okay.
A marriage, relationships, all this kind of stuff, and how she dealt with it. But it's very dry, very slow. It doesn't mean it's a bad movie. I sometimes like a lot of movies like that because I love character development. I don't need car crashes and explosions all the time.
No.
Actually, most of the time I don't. So that's number 7. And the actress's name, which will come up to me, is nominated for Best Actress.
Okay. So my number 7 is a movie that I knew I was going to see as soon as it was listed because I see every single movie that the studio makes. And this one really surprised me with how much I liked it. And that is Disney Pixar's Soul.
Okay.
Not seen it?
No.
Okay. Yeah. This so it stars is it Jamie Foxx is in it? Yeah,
Jamie Foxx is in it.
Yeah, it's Jamie Foxx. He plays like this piano player, and basically he like dies accidentally, and his soul like goes up into this like spirit world, and basically has like the whole movie is him trying to come back to Earth and be himself. And you learn a lot about this character, and you really they do a great job of like setting him up and making you care about him so that, when things start going south, you're in. And I was in for this movie, and Jamie Foxx is great. Of course, he's great in everything. He's so good in this role. He does a lot of the voice, the singing, and the piano, because there's a lot of music in this film. And it really has that kind of, southern, jazzy aesthetic to it, because, he's a jazz pianist. And you really get that connection with him and how he's kind of older and he wants to still make it. He's always struggled to make it in the industry, and it's kind of an interesting story for Pixar to tackle. But they of course add their fantasy and visual elements to it to make it all kind of mesh. And Pixar just they do miss, but rarely.
I think Jamie Foxx is probably one of the reasons why he's so good in it, other than he's actually a terrific actor, but he's also a musician, so he could probably relate to that.
Right, yeah, he definitely played all the piano and sang all of it, for sure. My only complaint with the film and why it's not higher for me is the character played by, what's her name from Saturday Night Live? Tina Fey.
Oh, Tina Fey.
Tina Fey's character is so awful and annoying that she almost ruins the movie at times. But the relationship between her character and Jamie Foxx's character works well enough for the movie. But a lot of her dialogue is just corny. It's a shame because I do think she's funny at times, but not in this film. But yeah, outside of that though, I thought the movie had so much heart, and the ending is really satisfying. So
Excellent.
yeah, what's your number 6?
Number 6 is a film adaptation of a Broadway play that was very successful by a playwright called August Wilson, I believe, he wrote it. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
Okay. I heard about this movie. I haven't seen it.
Viola Davis is Ma Rainey.
She's fantastic.
Who is Ma Rainey is a real
I know Ma Rainey.
Real blues singer. She passed away. Legend. Passed away in the late 30s. People who know blues. She was a contemporary of Bessie Smith, and they actually were friends and rivals at the same time. Denzel Washington produced.
She was before Ella Fitzgerald.
Oh, by a long shot.
Yeah.
Maybe she probably died at least 10 years before Ella started having some impact. But Ella Fitzgerald was amazing. She was, I wouldn't call her it was blues as much as maybe jazz.
Okay.
But Viola Davis is really great. Denzel Washington produced it. Chadwick Boseman.
He's in the film?
He's in the film. He's nominated for Best Actor, and he's going to win.
I need to see this movie.
For 2 reasons he's going to win. One, he was phenomenal, and 2, with him just recently passing away, that tends to
the posthumous Oscar.
A bit of some sympathy because he was well loved in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Fans loved him. Hollywood loved him. He did terrific work.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he might win on that alone, but also his performance. If he wins, you can't be mad. Because sometimes when somebody passes away and they win an Oscar or a Grammy or something, you go, well, yeah, that's because they passed away.
It's crazy to me about Chadwick Boseman is that he shot all those films with cancer.
And you
He
cannot,
shot Black Panther with cancer.
you can't tell that he was challenged with his illness, with
He was in incredible shape.
potentially pain, and emotionally too.
Yeah.
And he is, I understand there's another movie that hasn't been released yet with him.
Yeah.
But he is so good.
I need to see it.
He's so good. He is going to win the Oscar, in my opinion.
Okay.
So it's a solid movie.
Really, because I think there is a performance that will win the Oscar over him. And I haven't even seen the movie, and I can tell you that.
Okay.
But we'll get to it.
We'll get to that. But it's good. It's solid. In a normal year, I don't know that it would make my top 10. If so, maybe at the bottom. But at the Ma Rainey's bottom.
I like what you did there. That was your 6, right?
Yeah.
My number 6 was a horror film that came out in early 2020, I think in like January or February, and really surprised me. When I saw this movie, I was like, man, 2020 is going to be an awesome year. Well, yeah. But this movie really surprised me, and it's called The Invisible Man.
I did not see that. But I'm not a horror movie guy, but I wanted to see that movie.
Yeah. So it's directed by a guy named Lee Winnell. He's done a bunch of different. He helped create Saul with James Wan. He's done a lot of horror films. He did a movie called Upgrade a couple years ago that I really enjoyed. And this movie is basically, The Invisible Man is a classic horror villain. We've seen the adaptations done a bunch, but this was one I actually kind of wanted to see be remade, and the way Lee Winnell does this movie, it has a lot of deep suspense, and he's a great horror director, man. I really want to see this guy keep making films, because I was really impressed with this. Elizabeth Moss, I think she stars in it. She's great in this movie, and there's a lot of, the way they use the Invisible Man in the film to create suspense, especially there's a scene I remember that she's sleeping in bed and the sheets are getting pulled and stuff. That was a really intense scene. So there is some good suspense in this movie, and I really enjoyed it. I saw it early, and it's always just kind of hung around on my list, because I built my list from the beginning of the year, and I just over time adapt the list as I see more movies, and this one was at the top for a long time just because It came out at the right time, just in time to be out in theaters and get a release before the pandemic. So, it was a really good horror movie, and I'm really excited to see him. He has 2 hits here in a row, so a director to look out for.
Excellent.
What's your 5?
Number 5 is based on a true story that a lot of it took place right here in Ohio, called Hillbilly Elegy.
I've heard of this movie. I haven't seen it.
Glenn Close nominated in this for this role, and it's based on a true story, and it's good. It's a good movie. It's kind of didn't necessarily get a great response. I believe the budget was like $45 million, which is not that high for a Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
But it didn't have a lot of special effects or anything, and it only made like $50,000 or $60,000. So I think it's another victim of COVID. It was mostly streaming rather than in theaters. But Glenn Close is excellent. My complaint about Hollywood sometimes is that there are certain actors or actresses that get nominated no matter what.
Right.
And sometimes they nominate people just because they put makeup on or age themselves or make themselves something that they're not. And I'm not sure this is an Academy Award worthy performance in a normal year for her. She's not going to win, but the fact that she got nominated, I mean, good for her. But it was a solid movie.
You just think there were better performances?
Yeah, and she was fine. She was fine, but there wasn't anything about her performance that knocked her socks off. Okay. And I feel like Academy Award nominated movies should be, exceptional.
I agree.
So it was a good movie, and the fact there were some Ohio ties and some connections to.
It's on Netflix, isn't it?
Yeah, it is on Netflix.
I'll check that out.
So yeah.
That was your 5, right?
That was my number 5.
Okay, so my number 5 is a film that I saw a couple months ago. I missed it when it came out. And it got a lot of buzz toward the end of the year for Oscars, but I think a lot of that is it's lost a lot of steam now because we're in April and still haven't had the Oscars. Like, this film probably would have gotten more love than if the Oscars were at the normal time, February. But nevertheless, I really enjoyed this movie, and that is The Sound of Metal.
So I always interrupt you when you start doing your description, but The Sound of Metal is one I really, really, really want to see. I understand that it was made like 3 years ago, and kept being pushed off because of COVID and everything. And then I really want to see it. It's not on Netflix. I don't know when it's on.
I think it's on Amazon or Hulu or something like that.
I saw it. It is being shown at some theaters when they show the Oscar-nominated movies in the next couple of weeks, and so I will see it then. But I hear it's amazing.
Oh, it's a heavy film, and Riz Ahmed is fantastic in this film. He's so good, and I've liked him in movies in the past. He was really good in a movie called Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I believe so.
Yeah, he was like the cab driver in that. That Jake Gyllenhaal just pretty much forces to drive him around. But he was good in that. He was good in Star Wars stories. So, I mean, he had eyes on him for a while. And man, he picked a perfect role here. This movie is dense. It's hard to watch at times. Not hard to watch, but like it's just very. The way that it depicts deafness is so accurate, and the way the film uses sound editing to kind of relay that is brilliant, because you get a lot of these like muffled sounds like that he hears, and that's what I imagine it would be like to go deaf, is that it just slowly, noises slowly just kind of blend together, and you don't really understand anything, and it's heartbreaking because you see this guy who really had no regard for his health at all. I mean, he was in his band, just slamming the drums as hard as he can every night, and didn't really have any lookout for his own health, so that when his ears compromised, he's kind of left to figure it all out and find meaning in life. And it was a really good movie. It's a very dense movie, and I think it definitely deserves any of the Oscar awards. I don't know if it has any nominations or not.
Oh yeah, no, nominated for Best Movie.
Oh, Best Picture?
Yeah,
deserves it. It's good.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Probably more nominations as well, but certainly for Best Picture.
Yeah, Riz Ahmed, he deserves to be nominated for Best Actor. I don't know if he should win because of another performance that I'm thinking of, but he is freaking stellar, and I think he'll be a star in a couple of years, man, because he's really good in this movie. But that's my number 5. It's The Sound of Metal. What's your number 4?
So now we're in an area where these movies would make my list in any year.
Yes, I agree. Sound of Metal was probably the cutoff for you. Or no, Invisible Man.
Okay.
That was probably
So my top 4 would make it in any year, one of which you might argue with me. I don't know if it officially came out in 2020, but we'll get to that. My number 4 is a movie that I absolutely loved. I did not think I would. I thought maybe I'd like it, it might be okay, but I loved everything about it. I'm kind of an emotional guy anyway. I got emotional about it. I laughed throughout the whole thing. The music was phenomenal, and it's the film version of a 2018 Broadway musical called The Prom. And it is amazing, with Meryl Streep playing an actress that has won a couple of Tony Awards, who is kind of slipping in popularity, but she still she still wants the attention and respect that a celebrity gets. James Corden, he's got his own talk show late night, is also starring in this, along with Andrew Reynolds, who's another one of my favorite actors, along with Kerry Washington, Tracy Ullman, Mary Kay Place, and Nicole Kidman. And it is, to me, it's a phenomenal movie. It's a musical, and it's funny as heck, and the performances are stellar. I think Meryl Streep and maybe James Corden, if they had gotten nominated, I would not have been upset. And it's probably because the movie didn't do very well, and it was mostly on Netflix.
And Streep gets nominated every single year.
She does, as does Glenn Close does a lot.
Yeah.
And Streep was so good in this role. Yeah. So
It's called The Prom?
It's called The Prom. It's on Netflix.
Okay, I'll check this out.
It is very good. It deals with some social issues in a very comedic way, and it tugs at your heartstrings. So some people may not like the obvious attempt to do that, but it's really good. The music is great. Ryan Murphy directs, and he's like the king of Hollywood right now with television and movies, and half of the successful TV shows on right now have Ryan Murphy's name attached to it.
He's a big
So
deal.
that's my number 4, and if we were doing this tomorrow, it could possibly even be higher. So it just depends on the day.
Yeah, I understand that. My number 4 is... okay. This film I saw actually the other day in preparation for this, because it's nominated for Best Picture. Man, this movie has so much heart. I could not believe how much I love this movie, and I can't even believe I have it at number 4, but yet again it is, because this is, like you said, this is where it gets hard for me.
Tell me
It's the top 5. But this movie, enough prefacing, this movie is called Minari.
It's not on Netflix.
Yeah.
Again, I tried to watch a lot of movies at home to prepare for this too, and I want to see it. Kind of reminds me of last year's Parasite,
sort of.
No, only because it's a foreign film with subtitles.
A Korean film, yeah.
And a lot of people wrote Parasite off because of that, when they should not have.
I did at first, yes. I did at first, and then I watched it and absolutely loved it.
So I'm glad to hear it's great, because I really want to like it and really want to see it.
I will tell you this, South Korea is on fire right now, these guys. I mean, they got what's the big pop band, BTS?
Oh, yeah, BTS, yeah.
Those guys are killing it.
They are.
They got Bong Joon-ho, Bong Joon-ho, the guy who directed Parasite. Dude's one of the best directors working right now. And then they got this film, which blew me away with how much heart and nuance this movie has for subjects that could easily have been exploited for, brownie points.
Yeah.
In that, this film follows a Korean family that immigrates to the United States in the 80s. They tried, to make a living in California. They couldn't do it, so the father just goes out and buys this big plot of land out in Arkansas and tries to make his own farm. And it was so inspiring, this movie. This is one of the most inspiring movies I think that I've seen this year. It was so good, and the thing about it is the family unit is so well realized. It feels so real. Because so many of these movies can feel so clunky and forced and contrived, but this one just seems so natural and authentic. And this is social issues. Hollywood tries to exploit a lot of these social issues, and this movie handles because this movie easily could have just been Asian family gets tortured by racist Southern white people, but this movie really does a great job of just showing the real humanity of people, and it didn't go for those cheap, political points. It tried to tell a real story about a real family, and it was inspiring. It really was, because they actually wanted to tell a story instead of, pushing whatever agenda. So it was really, it was a breath of fresh air for a movie like this.
You make me really want to see it. I really wanted to, and I was really crossing my fingers it was on Netflix.
Yeah, I'm serious. It was really good, and the actor Stephen Ewan, who's the main actor, he's really good in this movie. He's nominated for Best Actor. I think he's the first foreign actor to be nominated for Best Actor, so shout out to him. And then, I forget the actress's name, but she plays the grandma in the film. She is great. She's nominated for Supporting Actress. She should win, in my opinion. She's so good. And there's a scene with the little boy and her in the creek, and it is magical, man. It's movie magic. It was a really good scene, and the movie, it's not full subtitles because it takes place in America. So, and the kids, I thought it was kind of a cool aspect that the kids speak a lot of English, because it kind of and the movie toes on that line of forgetting your culture and moving to a new place and having to adapt, but at the same time keeping your own values and your original values from your original country. And I think this movie treated that with such care, when many movies will just do anything to get brownie points instead of actually just telling a real story. In this movie, it felt so authentic.
Can't wait to see it. The
big fan.
The little kid was on either Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon, one of the Jimmys.
He's fantastic.
And they showed a clip of him with his grandmother, and it wasn't the one by the creek, but he was. She called him like a kid or something, and he said something like he was a man or something. I forgot, something like that. But it was a great clip. Oh. It really made me want to see it.
Kids are really cute, and they're really good too. Because
didn't Parasite, any actors from Parasite win anything at the Oscars, or was it just
no? It won Best Picture and Best International Film.
Okay, I just feel like I saw acceptance speeches, but it's probably
best for Best Screenplay too. I think.
Yeah, I think
Best original screenplay or something.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, Minari was really good. Had a lot of heart, and I'm actually thinking about this, and I'm not going to move it up, but I could.
Yeah.
But what's your number 3?
Well, this is one you're going to argue with me about, because I took some liberty with the release date. In Europe, it was released in 2020.
Okay.
In the United States, it was released in January 2021.
What is it?
So it's Nomadland.
That's your number 3?
Yeah.
That is also my number 3.
Is it really?
Yep.
So you agree with me that that's a 2020 movie?
Yep.
Because officially, at least according to my research, is that it wasn't a 2021 movie. That it wasn't a 2020 movie here in the U.S. So
I consider it 2020. Yeah.
Okay. I love this movie.
Oh, I do too. I loved it so much.
Frances McDormand is actually from a small town by Champaign, Illinois, where I spent most of my life, and called Gibson City. And she grew up there. I did not know that until like a few months ago. And after I saw the movie, I researched it more. And it's based on a true story. Mm-hmm. And what really, Frances McDormand, who normally drives me nuts, her facial expressions, her demeanor, her attitude kind of drives me nuts. But you cannot argue that she's not a fantastic actress.
Oh, no.
But something about her, I'm not like a crazy big fan, but if she's in a movie, you pretty much know it's going to be solid.
Yeah.
What really gave this movie heart, though, was that some of the nomads in No Man Land were real people.
Yeah, they're real people.
And so 2 of her friends were real nomads, and there's an older gentleman in the movie that kind of gave advice and was somebody they could go talk to and all this. He was a real guy too. And their stories were real. And it was kind of emotional at times.
Oh, yeah.
Powerful movie. She was really strong-willed. I mean, she wanted and liked and wasn't going to compromise her nomadic life. And this is a part of life that I'm not sure too many people knew about, including me. I mean, you hear about a person here or there, but it's like there's a group of people who live a nomadic lifestyle. Living
out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
In their cars.
And they just go from place to place, and they live in their vehicle, their RV or their truck or something. Powerful movie. It's nominated for Best Picture. Not surprisingly, Frances McDormand nominated for Best Actress. She did a phenomenal job.
The director, Chloe Zhao, did a phenomenal job with this film, man. It is so real. It's so real, It feels almost like a documentary at times, Well,
what almost makes it feel like the documentary And I felt like that when I was watching the movie, but after I found out that so many of the people in the movie were real, it made it even, in my mind, made it more of like a documentary.
Right.
In a very entertaining way and an emotional way. It's very emotional too.
There's one scene where she's talking to a woman in the car, and she's talking about how she's like, you know what I'm talking about, when she's like in the thing, and the lady's like sitting on the chair, and she's talking to her, and she has like the cancer, and she's gonna die, and she's like, I don't know, I think I lived a good life, and I just like pause in that moment, I'm like, damn.
I know.
I'm like, that is so heavy.
It is.
Like, that is so flippin' heavy. And it works so well. And like, the film just tackles so many things, like, finding purpose, the economic time, the economic struggles of that time. I mean, this was like 2011.
And being true to yourself, what you want out of life.
Right.
So much of that. It was emotional, very well done. I left when it was over, I almost felt exhausted. Yeah.
It's a very challenging film at times, because you could argue that nothing really happens in the movie, but I mean, it's not. Yeah, because it's so intimate. And it doesn't even feel like it's written.
Right.
And a lot of it probably wasn't, especially with like the real people, like you're saying. So, yeah, I really enjoyed this movie a lot. I was so into it.
Me too. And like I said, on another day, it could be number 2, maybe even 1.
And I thought Frances McDormand was so much better in this movie than that 3 Billboards of Ebbing, Missouri. I thought that movie was overrated and just really bland, in my opinion.
Well, those types of movies are favored by the Academy.
Yeah, I liked it, but it's not really memorable. Not like this one. I like this one so much more.
I liked it too. I agree.
And I like Frances McDormand in this much more, because she was kind of like, her character in 3 Billboards was just not really that likable to me.
You're right.
Not like she is in this movie. She's so much more, relatable and likable in this movie than in that one.
Yeah. Okay.
So definitely. What's your number 2?
The next 2 movies I absolutely loved, and again, I don't know, I could switch 1 or 2, and number 2 is an Alan Sorkin film, who mostly wrote for television.
Yep.
But this is the trial of the Chicago 7.
Didn't make my list.
Which I knew about, but it's almost like a history lesson a bit. I knew a lot of the Chicago 7 people from their post-Democratic National Convention lives, and post-trial lives. I got emotional over this movie too, because they were fighting for what was right, and in a very what really happened and made them seem more evil than they were. I know there were a couple of people that maybe overstepped lines and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But it wasn't intended to. The politics of the day were such that they were supposed to be made out to be more evil than they were. They did create a lot of dissension and that sort of thing, but it was for maybe the right reasons, and I thought this was a fantastic movie, fantastic performances. It was kind of like an all-star cast, so you didn't know if somebody's going to try to steal the limelight, say, well, I'm Eddie Redmayne, or somebody that I'm supposed to have a bigger role. I thought it was really excellently cast. It made me want to see Judas now.
Judas and the Black Messiah,
yeah. Because it is the story of one of the lesser characters.
Yeah, Bobby Seale.
No. Fred Hampton, I believe.
Oh, Fred Hampton. That's Judas and the Black Messiah, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that he was consulting for Bobby Seale.
Yeah, he was the guy leaning up over the pews.
Who lost his life because those. What a turbulent time.
Yeah.
But the Judas. And what's the full title?
And the Black Messiah?
Judas and the Black Messiah, is a continuation of, or tells his part of the story, which is pretty amazing too, and what happened to him. But Trial of the Chicago 7, to me, is a fantastic movie, probably underrated, and it's my number 2, and on the right day, I might even put it number 1. I left that movie feeling like this was really incredible. Mm-hmm. I really loved this movie.
Yeah. Interesting. I didn't love the film that much. I thought it was okay. The third act completely took me out of the movie. I mean, the whole riots and all that looks so staged and phony to me Like, it didn't feel real at all. Like, it did, especially when they're standing there in front of all those people, and then all those people are just standing behind them, and they have a good 5 feet of distance, where they're like, where should we go next? Oh, we're cornered! And it was like, it just seemed so phony. Like, to me, I was just watching it like, God, this movie's completely... Because the Bobby Seale stuff is flippin' fascinating.
It is.
It's fascinating, and they completely throw it away in the second act, and the movie just completely spirals out of nowhere,
Yeah, well,
in my opinion.
There's a lot to cover, so yeah, I can see that. It could have been a miniseries rather than just a film.
Maybe.
I didn't analyze the crowds as much as
Yeah,
you.
it just stood out to me.
More of the feel of what was going on at the time. I was okay with that, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it looked too much like a movie,
Okay.
That was my opinion.
I'll give you that. I loved it though.
No, I understand. And it's a well-written movie.
Yeah.
Aaron Sorkin's a phenomenal writer. I mean, there's nobody's denying that.
That movie was, they were trying to make this movie for like a decade, and it's changed hands a few times, and it's been rewritten a few times, and it finally came to light, and Aaron Sorkin was the one to do it.
Yeah, it's a good film, and I think he directed this too.
I think he did.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good film. Don't get me wrong. I had problems with it, especially in the third act. It kind of fell apart for me, but I do like it. What is your number? Oh wait, my number 2, right?
Yeah.
I'm getting a little ahead of myself. My number 2 was a film I actually just rewatched because I wanted to make sure it was still my number 2, and it is. It is Guy Ritchie's The Gentleman.
Oh, I wanted to see that too. I have not seen that.
Oh,
This is
yeah. Now, this movie isn't going to be for everybody because it is a very fast-paced movie. There's a lot of quick dialogue, very much Tarantino-esque dialogue, but it definitely has that. This is a Guy Ritchie film through and through. For me,
Guy Ritchie's hit or miss with
right. Me too. I liked, and it's crazy because this movie comes out in February. Well, he comes out with Aladdin in 2019, which was horrendous. It was a horrible movie. I watched the whole thing. I thought it was terrible and so unnecessary. He comes out with that, but you could tell he didn't really have a lot of control over that. He was just kind of there to be behind the camera and be a name for the film, more than him actually having creative control over it. Because it just didn't seem like a Guy Ritchie movie at all. Yeah. It felt like just a Disney Studios movie, with Guy Ritchie's name slapped on it. And Guy Ritchie, like you said, he's hit or miss, but this harkens back to like his best work. Lock, Stock, Smoking Barrels and Snatch. Like this is very much in that vein because it's a gangster flick in a way. Like. It has Matthew McConaughey, a great cast. Matthew McConaughey is great in this movie, of course, super slick and likable. Charlie Hunnam, who is a hit or miss for me, he was not great in that King Arthur movie, which I thought was, that's another Guy Ritchie film. But Charlie Hunnam was really fun in this movie and really good. This is one of my favorite performances, I think, of his career. He's so good in this movie and so fun. What's his name? Actor, older. He was in that show with Nicole Kidman. You know what I'm talking about? Hugh Grant. That was Hugh Grant. Okay, I'm sorry. Hugh Grant was really good in this movie as well. He's kind of like this guy that like kind of moves you through the story because like it's complicated, but he has like the screenplay that he kind of breaks down. And the movie is very fun, and it jumps around, and there's a lot of fun scenes, and I love the aesthetic. And there's one scene in particular where Charlie Hunnam goes to find this important person's daughter who's like gone rogue and is like hanging out with these stoner no-lifes, and he like walks in and basically like is trying to get her to come with them and go back to her family, and she's like refusing to, and these guys, and she's with all these young guys, and it's just this really funny scene, and it's really well written movie, good action at moments, and just I really enjoyed it. I could see myself just watching this movie a lot. And rewatchability is huge for me when I'm making these lists, and Guy Ritchie had a big hit here, so I'd like to see what he does next. And he's a filmmaker that I do really respect. At the end of the day, despite everybody has their missteps, and he's had some movies that didn't work, like Aladdin, but
swept away.
But I thought this was a good film.
So Aladdin. So he did the live action version of the animated.
Yep.
It was like so unnecessary. I felt the same way about Lion King.
Yep.
Why?
Lion King was at least better.
Oh my God!
But
why?
not good.
No, it was not good. Why? The first one's a masterpiece.
I agree.
So why? Why mess with it except
money?
I mean, seriously, that's the only reason. And then you could throw Beyonce in there and try to change everything. And she argued, we're talking about a movie that's not included here.
Yeah, but
she wanted a song in there because she wouldn't have done it if she wanted to mess with the Elton John Tim Rice soundtrack. So it's like, come on.
That movie,
Don't mess with it. Okay, so there we go.
And yeah, no emotion in that movie either.
None, zero. Unlike the animated.
Right, it has so much character
Yes.
and heart, and really dark at times too.
Oh yeah.
But back to Guy Ritchie though, and The Gentleman, really fun gangster flick. I'm a sucker for these kind of movies. And this one, it has a lot of rewatchability because the story's told in this kind of frantic, all over the place kind of way. So, I mean, I can see how people could get confused with this film, but on the rewatch, I enjoyed this movie so much better because I kind of knew the beats at that point, so I could really just kind of sit back and enjoy the performances and the dialogue, and it's all there. So, Guy Ritchie, good for you, man.
Okay.
What's your top movie of 2020?
The top movie of 2020 is one I liked a lot. And I even watched it a little bit later in the evening, which is not the smartest thing to do because, sometimes you lose interest.
Mm-hmm.
But I love this movie. And the fact, a lot of people won't like it because it's in black and white. But Mank. Mank
Interesting
is my favorite
choice.
movie
That's
of
your
the
number
year.
one.
It's my number one movie. In college I took a lot of film courses. And Citizen Kane was a movie that I first saw in college and had to write a paper on it. And we discussed it. And I love the movie. So I love also behind the scenes of Hollywood and things you didn't know. It's based on a true story with Orson Welles and
Mankiewicz,
yeah. And it just was amazing to me that Mankiewicz wrote most of Citizen Kane, yet Orson Welles got most of the credit. And to find out why is why you need to watch the movie, because I don't think we want to be spoilers here, because a lot of people have not seen a lot of these movies because of COVID. So go to your streaming services.
Yeah, this one's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix, which is why I saw it. I absolutely loved this movie. Gary Oldman was fantastic.
He is very good in this movie. Yes.
He doesn't do a lot except talk. It's one of these movies that there's no action. It's all emotion, and it's all telling the story of what really happened, of what is often considered the greatest movie of all time. So I loved it. It's my number one without fail.
Okay. I'll tell you this much.
Didn't even make your list?
No. It's an honorable mention. I liked it.
Oh my
My problem with it is the movie is boring. It is so boring. I'm sorry. I know you like it. I know you like it. And I think it's a really well done movie, and it's well acted, well written, but just not. Every scene is the same. Mank walking around drunkenly, complaining about stuff, and then characters just kind of bouncing off it. It just didn't.
But it helped with the progression that's who he was as a person. It wasn't just because he had an accident and he was recovering and it was a temporary thing. That was who he was, and then the struggles with the studio heads and Louis B. Mayer and Orson Welles and all these people, and they really depict Welles as just a total pitbull in this movie, just through and through. Which I guess he was.
Yeah.
And the Communist Party and all this stuff. To me, it was absolutely fascinating. So, like we were talking earlier, I don't mind movies if they're considered, quote unquote, a little bit slow if they progress the story, and I was fascinated by the story.
Yeah, I mean, I understand.
I really was.
And especially if you have more of that connection with Citizen Kane. I like Citizen Kane. I think it's a very brilliant film. It is, but it's not one of my favorites. So maybe I would have liked this movie more in that regard, but I don't know. I thought it was good. Don't get me wrong. I liked Gary Oldman, but in the movie, but. Nothing really makes me want to go back and watch that again,
Yeah, well, you know what? There aren't many movies that I want to invest another 2 hours in, even good ones. I feel like once I've seen them, but occasionally there's some I want to see again. Movies to me are not like music. You listen to music over and over again, but movies don't necessarily. There are exceptions, of course. But I also love that, the making of Citizen Kane, there's so much, politics played such a major role. And whether this movie that was, they said, loosely based on the life of William Randolph Hearst, the most powerful media mogul, in the world at that time, was considered very dangerous.
Of course.
And they were trying to convince him not to do it. And the politics of that and taking on William Randolph Hearst, for a presidential campaign.
Played by Charles Dance, who's just a phenomenal actor.
Oh my gosh, I just loved everything about it, and maybe it's because I knew a little bit of the history, but there was a lot of it I did not know.
Right, and I didn't know any of it, so that's probably why I didn't really. it was hard to kind of follow too at times. You know?
I can see that. I knew enough to be really interested, and there was enough new stuff that fascinated me that I went back and researched it, because you never know. A lot of these true stories cannot be shown in history class, because, including Spielberg's Lincoln, there's enough things that have been changed that you can't. People believe that all these true stories are true. So, like Rocket Man, for instance. Oh my God, a great, brilliant movie. So many inaccuracies, and that's true with a lot of these true stories. So I went back and researched it. I loved it. It's my number one.
All right.
I'm curious to hear what your number one is.
I can't believe you haven't seen. Well, I mean, maybe because it's not as accessible and it's not on Netflix or very many streaming at all. But this film absolutely destroyed me.
Okay.
I couldn't believe how good this movie was.
I want to see it already.
This movie's called The Father.
I know it. Anthony Perkins.
Anthony Hopkins.
Sorry, Anthony Perkins has been dead.
Yeah, he's
Psycho. Yeah. Anthony Hopkins. Everything I've seen, this is phenomenal, and it's very touching, and it's something that we being a lot of people and families deal with, and I want to see it so badly. I will see it in the theater, maybe over the weekend or next week. I'll see it before the Oscars. I wanted to see it, but it was not available on Netflix.
This movie destroyed me, man. It was so heavy. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. And Anthony Hopkins is going to win Best Actor. He is. Okay. He is one of the best performances I think I've ever seen. Okay. Period. He is incredible in this film. And heartbreaking. I mean, man, and it's hard for me because, you know, my grandpa's going through this. And I'm watching it firsthand. And the way this film depicts it is so brilliant. There's a scene in particular, not a spoiler, but there's a scene where he comes in to go to eat, and then they have this conversation, and then he leaves, and when he comes back, it's shot the exact same way as when he first came in. And they say the same thing, like, "Oh, what are you doing there? I'm standing in the hall." The same thing they say to him when he first comes in. Yeah. And it's like this thing where I'm like, I paused the film at that moment, and I was like, what? I had to rewind it. And I watched that whole scene again. And the way it is done is brilliant. And you'll know when you see the film.
Yeah. Making me emotional now because...
Oh my goodness. But the ending of this movie... Yeah. It broke me. I cried. And I don't cry during movies. Yeah. Very rarely.
Oh my God.
Very rarely. And I cried.
I do.
At the end of this film. It just... it's a lot. And I mean, the film deals with... You know... this character, you feel so... You know... He acts so irrationally throughout the film, but you can't... You know, and even the people around him are like, man, he's just so out of it. We can't, you know, it's hard, and it's a very hard, you know. And the movie as it goes and progressively, you know, it gets worse and worse for him. So, I mean, but the way it's done and the dialogue and the acting, I mean, is phenomenal. Although, you know that movie The Favorite that came out a couple years ago?
I saw it.
You know who played Queen Anne? I forget her name.
Olivia Colman.
Olivia Colman. She's in the film.
And she won the Oscar too, I believe.
Yeah, she did. She's brilliant in this film too. And
she's nominated.
Yeah, she's so good in this movie, dude. Oh my goodness. I couldn't believe how much I loved it. And I was like, I hadn't really heard much about it until like a month ago. You know, I started getting buzzed for the Oscars, and I saw it, man.
I'm wondering if it is not a 2021 movie.
I don't think it is. Let me look.
But
that would be a big botch on my part.
We have. I think so many people know people going through.
It is 2020.
Okay. Okay. Good. Because I looked up some. Maybe I just missed that one. But I wanted to see it. We just ran out of time.
You gotta see it. It is amazing. It's an amazing film.
Almost everybody knows people who've gone through that, and it's heartbreaking, especially when it's somebody in your family, somebody you care about.
Right, and the thing I think I love about this movie too is it was adapted from a play by the director of the play, and the writer of the play wrote the screenplay and directed the film. So it was a direct adaptation, like through and through, the vision of the creator, and you can, I mean, just the care and the music. I love the opera music that kind of brings you through to different scenes of the movie. Really works.
You know, movies that use opera are really powerful. Like in this movie, which I haven't seen yet, but I think of like Philadelphia and a couple of movies that use opera to great effect. I mean, it adds to the emotion of what's happening. There's something about opera that does
Right,
that.
that just like the higher pitched vocals, just like they hit you on some level, especially in this film. Like, and you know, it's crazy because I talked about in Sound of Metal how they used filmmaking and sound editing to kind of give you that illusion of going deaf and kind of give you that feeling of what it would be like. This film does the exact same thing with dementia and Alzheimer's, and it does it in a way that is so powerful, and the filmmaking, just the direction, like I mentioned with that scene that I was explaining, that kind of filmmaking is done throughout the film. You know, characters kind of are replaced by other actors, you know, and it's kind of like, it gives you this disorienting feel throughout the whole film, and you're just like, what the hell is going on? And that's exactly how these people feel.
Right.
So, I mean, it's perfect. It's a brilliant film. I
will see it.
It's heavy.
I will see it.
It's very heavy, though. I will warn.
You know, it's very interesting when we share a top 10 list that there was only one movie that we both had.
I know. I thought we were going to have a lot more commonalities.
No, I think, which kind of makes a point to how challenging and unusual 2020 was. Because COVID shut everything down, including theaters. So many movies now, and COVID kind of sped this along, I think, is that more and more movies are being released on streaming services as more and more theaters are going.
Yeah, it's giving them an outlet to just fully push the streaming.
More and more theaters are going bankrupt or closing or limited. I mean, even in Columbus.
The AMC down here just got bought,
and Lennox closed.
Oh, the Lennox one closed?
Yep, and then the AMC in Champaign, Illinois, where I'm from. It wasn't the AMC, it was a different one. GKC closed. And Phoenix, this kind of a Dollar Tree movie chain. Everything's a little bit cheaper.
Phoenix, yeah, they're the ones that bought Lennox, yeah.
Yeah, they bought Lennox, and they bought the one in Champaign and other country. No, it's good. Thank goodness for them. They're a little lower priced and all that kind of thing.
Here's the foot in the door. AMC stonks.
Well, but 2020 was just so strange for movies, and you know me, I've said it many times. I love seeing movies in theaters, and that opportunity was not really there much. I think the first movie I saw in theaters in 2020 was in October. It was in actually early November, because I think I'm the only person on earth who had never seen Hocus Pocus. And
really?
It was the anniversary of Hocus Pocus. And I thought, well, you know what, I need to see that movie, plus I need to get out of the house. And so I saw that, and so that one's like 25 years old or more. So, you know, there wasn't that opportunity. And so my struggle with the list, as I looked at the list of 2020 movies of significance, is that they're all over the board on streaming services, and there's no way you can see them all. And only now are they starting to come back, I'd say in the last month or maybe a little bit longer. But they don't stay in theaters long, and then they go straight to the streaming services. So that's the challenge. I would say if we do this again next year, we might have the same movies in different orders.
Yeah.
But we might have more of the same movies because there
I
would
kind
be
of
more
like
access.
I kind of liked how our lists were very different, though, because we got to cover a lot of different films. So, I mean, how many commonalities do we... Let's read our lists.
Well, we only had one, No Man Land.
Was that the only commonality we had?
Because I had Mank, Trial of Chicago 7, No Man Land, The Prom, Hillbilly Elegy, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Pieces of a Woman, Hamilton, Midnight Sky, and Wonder Woman 1984.
Yeah, and I have The Way Back at 10. My number 9 is The King of Staten Island. My number 8 is The Phenomenon. My number 7 is Soul. My number 6 is The Invisible Man. My number 5 is The Sound of Metal. Number 4 is Minari. Number 3 is Nomadland. Number 2 is The Gentleman. And number 1, The Father.
Yeah, and so many of those I want to see, but I didn't have access.
Right. It is a hard year. I agree.
So if we do this again next year, I bet we're more in tune, because I think in a lot of ways, we like a lot of the same movies.
We do, yeah.
And
I think if we would have done it in 2019, we would have had similar lists, because, you know, Rocketman was high on my list and is also would probably be your number one.
Well, and it's not because full disclosure, I'm a diehard Elton John fan, and a lot of people said, well, of course you're going to like that movie. And I said, not necessarily, because I'm such a fan. I think I might be more critical than an average moviegoer, because I know the facts more than most. So I loved it. I hated the inaccuracies, but here's the deal. We did an Arena Guy podcast in 2019, I believe, or 2019?
2019, yeah.
This year, we're doing this, you and me, in this very unusual COVID year. So we need to do this again next year.
We'll do it next year.
And see how post-COVID, cross your fingers, post-COVID, how close we are.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the major movies we will have seen, and we'll have a year to see it, as
Right.
opposed to like.
I can get a little bit of time.
No, it's not that. It's 2 months in theaters. Really, movies haven't been back for long, and when they did first come back, it was only like a couple.
Yeah. Oh, I know what you're saying. Like the film release.
Yeah,
like, I agree.
Right. And then you had to have the streaming services.
They're just putting them out there for like a week just to get the prerequisites to be nominated for an Academy Award. Like that's really the reason they even release the data at this point. Like, because they're not making any box office revenue right now. Well, nowadays they are. King Kong and Godzilla just made a bunch of money.
People were dying to get out.
Yeah.
It was exactly what I thought it was a horrible movie, but it was entertaining in the sense that you knew it was a popcorn movie, and you wanted the roars, and you wanted the violence, and you wanted the fights, and you got that.
Right. And that was what I was scared of, was they were going to just have some stupid storyline that nobody cares about. Like, just give us some... at least they cut it to a minimum. Like, in the other Godzilla movies, they take over half the film, and it's like, I want to see the monsters blow each other up. Like, I don't care about whatever this is.
But anyone who says that movie wasn't what they expected is lying.
Yeah, they're wrong.
Because it was exactly what you expected. And I did see that movie, and it was a fun Saturday afternoon movie.
Yeah.
But, I mean, in the scheme of cinematic history, it wasn't very good.
No.
But it was what you expected, and you ate a lot of popcorn where I said, whoa, that's cool how King Kong and Godzilla.
Yeah, look at that CGI. But no, 2021, we'll see what happens with, blockbusters and whatnot. Everything's getting pushed back. We'll see.
I'm going to see half of your list before the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
I don't have much time, but...
Let's do this real quick before we cut off.
Okay.
What do you think is going to win Best Picture this year?
I haven't seen some of them. So I tried, I'm in the process of seeing them. I think Nomadland has a lot of buzz, but I haven't seen a lot of the others. Mank is nominated. I think Mank had the most nominations over any movie. I think
Really?
10 nominations.
Wow.
More than any other movie.
That is totally an Oscar.
It's very Hollywood, behind the scenes Hollywood, and Hollywood people might like that.
Yeah.
It's black and white, so that makes it have an artsy feel.
I love black and white movies.
Well, I do too. You have to be careful with overusing it, because then you say, well, they're doing that for effect, and they're doing that on purpose for this reaction. But it was warranted. It was very good.
Yeah, it made sense within the context.
On my list, I don't think Pieces of a Woman was nominated Best Movie, but Best Actress or Supporting Actress maybe. No, I don't have any other Best Movie nominations. I want to see
Judas and the Black Messiah?
I do.
Yeah, that's the one I have to see still. That's the only one I have to see.
I'm intrigued by it because of the trial of Chicago 7. I want to see The Father, big time.
Check that
I
out.
want to see, I don't want to say it because I'm going to mispronounce the name of the South Korean film.
Oh, Minari?
Yeah, Minari.
Check that out as well.
I want to see that so badly. So right now, just from what I read, and I read entertainment magazines, and I just get a vibe, my vibe right now is that Mank might do it.
You think?
I don't know. I haven't seen the others, but it's just the vibe I get, and winning an Oscar is not necessarily who deserves it the most. In fact, the nominations aren't necessarily who deserves it the most.
No.
It's somewhat political, and who
Yes.
spends the money to campaign and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Mank got 10 nominations, including acting, and screenplay, and movie, and I just feel like momentum is on its side. So that's kind of my prediction without seeing many of the others. So I might change. Minari, though, wouldn't it be something if...
Two South Korean films went back to back.
Yeah, back to back. I feel like it's not going to happen for that reason. It's kind of like why Taron Egerton didn't get nominated for an Oscar because Rami Malek did for Bohemian Rhapsody. So it might be that. So long answer to your question, I'm going to say Mank just on my vibe. But if you ask me in a couple of weeks after I've seen them all, I might have a different opinion.
I'm thinking, probably, I want The Father. I think The Father should win. It's the best movie of the bunch, but probably won't. I think you're right. I think it'll probably be Mank.
Don't know.
Or maybe Minari. I don't know if that even has enough buzz. Not like Parasite did.
I don't feel like it has buzz.
No.
And I feel like if Parasite...
Nomadland, maybe?
If Parasite didn't win, would Minari have been nominated? I wonder if it's writing on the...
Well, no, because now they have because they have all the prerequisites now. You have to have this amount of, minorities in the film. You have to have this many, whatever.
I know.
So
But even that aside, I'm wondering if it's kind of riding on the momentum of Parasite.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Oh, totally.
And that is one reason why. Of course,
But it's not anything like that film.
But I know. Just a foreign film, subtitles that made some impact. I'm just wondering if the momentum of Parasite.
I think I like it more than Paris. I don't know. Actually, I don't know.
I remember when I saw Parasite and you and I talked about how incredible it was and how maybe afterwards we were both surprised at how incredible it was.
Such a well-written film.
Yeah.
Really brilliant. Arena Guy, thank you so much for taking this. Thank you. Thank you so much, honestly.
Too much fun.
Such an inspiration and no, seriously, thank you for everything you've done for me, honestly. You've been a great friend. Well, not friend, but you were a great boss, great mentor, now great friend.
I think we're friends.
Of course, yeah. You invited me to your home.
Many times.
Yes.
You helped me move. That's a big deal.
Yes.
No, thank you for everything that you've done, and I love where you are headed. I love your ambition to do this podcast and do it, and everything else that you're doing. I'm just really impressed, and now I am sending good vibes to get that killer job that you want.
Thank you. I'm working on it. But anything you want to share or plug, obviously, the Arena Guy. Follow the Arena Guy on everything. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Yeah, and of course the podcast, the Arena Guy podcast that TJ was involved with.
I was a producer.
Wherever you get your podcast. And also you can see a visual version of our podcast. I think 3 episodes on YouTube.
Yep.
So, it's all good. And
thanks for coming.
This is
Follow the Arena Guy.
Thanks for coming. This is my house.
Thanks for coming to your house. But no, follow me on everything, Instagram, Twitter, go to tjmartino.com, I got the website, go up there, check it out, I got all the stuff there, go to the home base, see what I got coming down on the pipes. Thank you, Arena Guy, for everything. Check out all the movies on our lists, and drop below what you guys think the best picture is going to be. It's hard to hear. It's weird to hear. So we'll see what happens. But thanks for everything. We'll talk to you guys next time. Hi, Jules. And let the beat drop.